again. It's a rich
Welcome, everybody, to the Tee 'em Up podcast, the first, I should say, Tee 'em Up podcast. I'm Jace Eustace, joined here by Jared
Jared
Huff.
Huff.
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad, man. I'm excited we're getting this together. I know we've kind of been working behind the scenes, putting things together as far as social media pages, kind of figuring out what we wanted to do here with this podcast. And I think we've kind of settled on something that's going to be a lot of fun. You know, it's going to be discussions, it's going to be disagreements, it's going to be kind of just two guys talking basketball, two guys that are big fans of the game. And I know me and you in the past, there's a lot of things kind of within the game I know we both disagree on, and I'm sure we'll get into those in the future episodes. But
Definitely.
you know, just here, how do you feel like we're just a couple days away from the start of this NBA season, the 75th NBA season?
Yeah, I'm so excited for this season. I don't know if it's just because every summer seems to be longer and longer once basketball's over. I don't know if it's the fact that my Chicago Bulls are back into, I think, a competitive state. That could be why I'm so excited. All I know is that basketball is here, and I don't know, it definitely makes my falls a lot better.
No, I agree. And especially here, we're in the height of football season. I know we're a fan of all sports, but here we're just going to focus here on basketball. And we'll get to your Chicago Bulls here in a second. I know my Miami Heat, I'm a big fan of them. Also, LeBron James over there at the Lakers. But I think the first thing that we both kind of wanted to do is before the season starts, kind of put everything down on pen and paper, kind of just put something down that we can go back and say, hey, we really nailed that, or we really screwed that pick up. And I think we both wanted to start with our playoff seeding. So I think we should just get right into it here. So let's just kind of go into it. How do you see those top 8 guys, those playoff guys in the Eastern Conference really shaking out?
So I kind of follow this trend where I'm looking at like what teams made big additions. I'm looking at just the star power, stuff like that, how the teams played last year. So if we want to start out with the East,
Yeah, let's just run into that.
It was kind of tough for me to pick the top 2 seeds, but I went with the Nets just based on them having Kevin Durant and James Harden. We don't know how the Kyrie situation is going to end, but I'm not too concerned with that because, I mean, as we saw last playoffs with Durant, the man could single-handedly beat the Bucks on his own with a shell of a corpse of James Harden, who's recovering from, was it a hamstring injury, something like that?
It seems to always be a hamstring with James Harden. It's what it always seems to be.
Yeah, so I think without Kyrie, I don't think the Nets are in trouble. They have plenty of veterans, plenty of great veterans. I mean, Marcus Aldridge returned. They picked up Paul Millsap. You have Blake Griffin. Like, that team is deep. It's a really deep team. And like, I can see a world where the Bucks are still the top seed in the East, but this year I'm going to have to go with the Nets. I think Kevin Durant's really going to do it. For number 2, I do have the Bucks. I don't think they're going to hit the championship hangover. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis, he's one of those guys where I don't think just him getting that first championship is going to be like enough where he's going to be like, oh, I'm the champ now. I'm the big man. I don't really have to like try as much. I think he's still going to be hungry. I think this Bucks team is going to follow that mentality and they're going to be hungry for more. They want to prove that it wasn't a fluke championship because James Harden and Kyrie Irving weren't really in that series. I think they want to prove that, like, yes, we're a legitimate contender and it didn't matter if we played the Lakers in the finals or not. We want to prove that we were really worthy of being champions because I think it's been called into question the last 2 finals for a number of different reasons. Like, are these like legitimate champions? I mean, you had the bubble and then you had, just everything with the injuries last season across like every single playoff team other than the Suns and the Bucks.
Very true.
At 3, I have the 76ers. I mean, they were the top seed in the East last year. I'm not too concerned about the Ben Simmons situation because one way or another he's going to play or they're going to trade him. And at the same time, I think Embiid's an MVP candidate. So I have the Sixers at 3. At number 4, you're gonna like this. I have your Heat.
There we
I
go.
think the addition
Some
of Kyle
respect.
Lowry definitely really helps them. Definitely makes them a solid and legitimate contender in the East. To the point where, in a world where the Nets maybe fall apart a little bit, the Heat could prove that hey, we kind of belonged in those NBA Finals a few years ago. So, at number 5, I have the Chicago Bulls. It could be because I'm a big fan, but I kind of gravitate more towards the team's ceiling than the team's floor. like I think they're going to be better. And just from what I saw in the preseason, like they look like they could be a very good team with the right coaching and with just everything coming together for them. They already look like they have great chemistry despite it essentially being a completely new team. I mean, the only guys coming back from a full season with that team last year, I believe, are Zach Levine and Kobe White. Kobe White excites me because even though he's not playing right now, I can't wait to see where he fits into this lineup once he does come back. Because he just adds a little bit of depth at the guard spot where I think the Bulls are probably at their strongest because you have one of the best backcourts, definitely in the conference with Lonzo and Levine for sure.
Yeah, no doubt there.
Now, the Celtics, this was kind of tough when I was doing like all the teams in my head. And then when I started putting them down, the Celtics were one of the first teams I put up there and they kept dropping after every team that I thought of. I'm like, uh oh. But the Celtics didn't do enough this offseason. I mean, the Dennis Schroeder was a nice pickup, was a nice signing, but all the teams in the East that I listed before you, I they all improved aside from like the 76ers. But the 76ers were already such a good team that I didn't see any reason to put the Celtics ahead of them. Jason Tatum definitely has to have like his like coming out, okay, I'm a top 10 player in the league
Mhm.
season. I can definitely see them rising. But other than that, the Celtics just didn't do enough for me to warrant putting them above anybody else that I already listed.
No, I can
It
respect
might
that.
it might not be a popular pick for some people. Some people might be mad. So sorry, City of Boston, but you guys just your teams is just not that deep. At number 7, which this is another kind of controversial pick, I have the Knicks. Despite the Hawks playing so well in the playoffs, I'm gonna say it was more Trae Young just being very fortunate that like he was just on fire that whole playoffs and running into some teams with some injury problems. I believe Embiid missed a game or two in that series, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I think the Hawks got lucky last year, so that's why I put the Knicks at 7. Um, I still think the Knicks are the better team. I just think that Trae Young was just so good. So in the playoffs, like, if they somehow run into each other, if they get like the 4 and the 5, I can definitely see the Hawks like taking on the Knicks and winning that series. But in the regular season, I just think the Knicks are a much better basketball team. I think they have more talent, more star power. I mean, you have a guy like Derrick Rose coming off the bench, and who's he playing behind? You have Kemba Walker. Now it remains to be seen if Kemba Walker can kind of reclaim some of his star power. I mean, he's kind of been a shell of himself in Boston with the injuries and stuff like that. But I think this situation could be the perfect situation for Kemba Walker to kind of come back and say, "Hey, I'm still Kemba Walker."
Well, especially at this point in his career too, with the way, like you said, he's not the Kemba Walker that came into the league. He was lighting it up, cardiac Kemba, but I think he still has some in the tank. And, I like that right there at 7.
Yeah. Also, Thibodeau teams tend to do pretty well, so I got to roll with my guy Tibbs and Derrick Rose. So at number 8, I do have the Hawks, which I'm not crazy about having them at 8. It's just the fact that the East is so like this. The Eastern Conference is probably the best it's been, at least on paper, probably since like the 90s. I think this conference is a legitimate conference finally, which that's what fans have been waiting for years. We kept seeing stars migrate west, um, to where now there could be a conversation where the East could be better than the West. Who knows? Uh, so that's why it was so hard to put the Hawks this far down. And there, when I get to them, to our some of the teams where for the playing games, it was just tough to put those in there too. Uh, at number 9, I have the Wizards for one of the playing games. Um, they, I think the team definitely got better. With the Westbrook trade, it definitely made them deeper. Because Spencer Dinwiddie, who I hope he comes back and rebounds from injury, just has finds a nice role for him besides Bradley Beal. That's a dangerous backcourt as long as Dinwiddie comes back as Spencer Dinwiddie and not as we've seen so many times with guards with those devastating injuries like a shell of themselves. I think Beal is primed to like have a breakout year as a star because either this is going to be, hey, I'm Bradley Beal, I'm a legitimate star player, which in that case, you could see the Wizards moving into a real playoff spot instead of having to do the playing game. But the way things stand right now, I have them at 9. And then at 10, I have the Pacers. I don't know how far you want to go down on this list, so I just did my first 10. If we want to do more, we don't really have to break it down too much because these other teams really don't matter. But Pacers are definitely at 10 for me. They I really can't figure out this team. I kind of think it's one of those where they just kind of need to blow it up and rebuild because they don't have any star talent that's gonna elevate them. But they're like, I don't know, they're just one of those weird teams for me. Like they're good, but they're not great.
The Pacers are always hard to judge. It seems like they always have been, even back when they were, you could say, kind of the height of that run with the Paul George, Lance Stevenson really taking on LeBron in the Eastern Conference. Still, it just seemed like they could never get over the hump. And every year since then, like you said, you always like them. You like their pieces. Just seems like either an injury or sometimes head coaching, or there's always just seems to be some sort of question mark that leaves them sometimes on the outside looking in, but sometimes in that 7, 8, even 6 seed, just kind of like, hey, we got to the first round, but are we even really a threat? So no, I agree with you there. And I want to start breaking down some of yours because we have some similarities, but there's some teams that I'm noticing really early on that I'm a lot higher on than you. So I'm just going to jump right into it. The top of my Eastern Conference is kind of similar. I went with Milwaukee number 1 over Brooklyn at number 2. With Milwaukee, I just think another year together. I agree with you. Another year under Mike Budenholzer. They're not going to kind of have that complacency that, hey, we won the championship. It's over. I like the mentality that Giannis has. He still is able and willing to do that dirty work. He gets down. He's a rim protector, plays defense. He could play 48 minutes a night. He proved that over this last playoffs. And I really like to see what they have. They did lose PJ Tucker and Brian Forbes. So just a little bit there, but they were able to re-sign Bobby Portis. I know that was a big story going into the offseason. So like them at number 1. Number 2, Brooklyn, this is just on the pure talent of KD and Harden. It's an off season of them knowing that they're going to be on the same team. They didn't have that benefit going into last season with Harden still being stuck in Houston at the beginning of the season. I wrote down, I think they performed well, but with Kyrie and kind of they also lost Landry Shamet, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jeff Green, some of that bench. I think this is a team that if things start to go south, it goes south quickly. It's a team that starts to drop. I think just the pure talent of KD and Harden, you cannot overlook them. They keep them afloat, especially in this Eastern Conference. I like them there at number 2, but there's a little bit of flexibility there if things start to go south. But I think they're going to be able to kind of put this Kyrie situation to the side, move into the season. Number 3, I appreciate your love for Miami. I got Miami at number 3, a little bit higher than you, but I think you look at most commentators around the league, they had one of the best off seasons, if not the best off season they've ever seen. Just adding PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris, Victor Oladipo, bringing him back. Obviously, the Kyle Lowry. They re-signed Dwayne Dedman. Got the sharpshooter Max Strauss to come back on the team. That bench is deep. And what I love is you got some guys like Tyler Hero, PJ Tucker will probably slide into that starting lineup, but Markieff Morris, you got guys coming off the bench that can really score. And I think that's where Miami kind of has fallen. They're a team that they play hard. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is a big part of that, playing defense, playing both ends of the floor. But like Miami under the coaching of Eric Spoelstra, get to that 3 seed because we've seen in the past they don't like to be in that 4 and 5 because it seems to be those are tough matchups to have to win in the first round of the playoffs. Number 4 is a team that I am very high on. It seems like you are not so high on, Atlanta. I am high on Atlanta. I really liked what I saw from them in the playoffs last year. I don't know what it is, but they just kind of got the band back together. Re-signed Trae Young to that long deal, got John Collins back this time. And what I really like too, a full season under Nate McMillan. I know they really liked playing for him last season. They showed that in the playoffs. They were a team that came out of nowhere. No one really saw coming. I like Atlanta in this Eastern Conference to kind of edge their way up there, just slow and steady, and really beat up on the bottom of the Western Conference when they get a chance to play those teams. I know you got Atlanta sneaking in there at 8, and I respect that, but I am really high on Atlanta.
I think it was they felt fluky to me. I think it was a flash in the pan, but we'll see. That's definitely going to be something that we're definitely going to have conversations about, I'm sure, all season. It's just kind of watching where Atlanta falls by the end of it. I'm excited.
No, definitely. And you gave my team some props. So coming in at number 5, I got Chicago. I think Chicago, without a doubt, had one of the best off seasons right there with Miami as far as the best offseason moves. Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso. Even I love the former Miami Heat, Derrick Jones Jr. coming in. Also love the draft pick and Io Dosumo coming from the University of Illinois. I love him, kind of the bench that he brings, that guard position, like you said, it's pretty deep, especially in the Eastern Conference. I'll give Atlanta their props. I love the coach Billy Donovan there. I think he is a great fit. I like them coming in at number 5, really moving up there. So I think that's right where you had him at number 5. So I think we got him even there. And then number 6 is a team that I dropped a lot. You still had coming in at number 3 is Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia, I still like them. And I think that Joel Embiid is still a great player and is going to be for a long time here. But to me, they just didn't do enough. They didn't do enough where the Eastern Conference got better. We talk about Miami, we talk about Chicago, 2 teams that really went out and said, hey, we have to get better in this Eastern Conference. Philadelphia, it wasn't enough for me. They signed Andre Drummond, who we saw him at the end of the last season with the Lakers, did not look like the Andre Drummond that we saw in Detroit, where he was dominating games. They did keep Danny Green, but they lost Dwight Howard and George Hill. So it's almost kind of just a wash there where it's almost just run it back. And I know that they were the number 1 seed last year, but I really foresee that kind of dropping. I still see them in the playoffs because any team with the talent of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, especially in the Eastern Conference, it's going to be hard to miss the playoffs. But I kind of like them lower there in that 6th position just for me. But number 7, I was surprised to see this in there, but I was happy that we did, is I also have the Knicks coming in at number 7. I think they didn't really lose a lot. They lost Reggie Bullock, Elfrid Payton, but they were able to bring back Nerlens Noel, obviously Derrick Rose, Burks. They added Evan Fournier, and of course, Kemba Walker, bringing him back in. Like you said, Thibodeau, his teams play hard. They play defense. They're going to be a tough team to beat. No one's going to want to go to the Garden and play them, and that's going to be a tough out. And then number 8, I have Charlotte.
Whoa.
I have Charlotte. Yes, I do. I have Charlotte. And maybe I am just, I think higher of LaMelo Ball. I think he had a great rookie year. And what surprised me most about him wasn't just his play, is it seemed to be his leadership. I was worried when he went in there that he was kind of going to be this goofy guy. Everybody knows his dad. Everybody knows his brothers, but he really kind of didn't take ownership. He kind of almost separated himself from all that. And he just kind of went to Charlotte, put his head down, and played great basketball. And I think his teammates really rallied around him. They added Mason Plumlee, Ish Smith, Kelly Oubre. So not names that jump off the page, but nice bench role players. They also had the 11th overall pick in James Bouknight, and Kai Jones, the 19th overall pick. It's coming into this season. I really like Charlotte to kind of take that step up, grab that 8th seed going into this season.
I definitely can respect that. It kind of surprised me. For me, the Hornets, it was really tough to not put them in the play-in, but I definitely see a world where they'll definitely get in it, no problem. But I don't think you can talk me into an 8th seed. Not just yet. I'll have to see them play a little more. Especially even though I know it's preseason, but they got pounded by Dallas. Historically bad. So
I get that. And you said there's one team missing, and that would be Boston. I'm not high on Boston. I'm really not. I think Boston is it's one of those teams where they've kind of hovered around that 5, 6. They had a couple seasons where they're up there in that 3 seed. And obviously Jason Tatum is a stud. I love Jason Tatum as a player. But I just think as a team, they kind of just become complacent from the management perspective, where they think that they're better than they actually are. And I think every year we get closer to that window closing where this group of guys has a chance to actually compete for a title. And we've seen that they're unwilling to make the big moves. They're unwilling to trade those guys, trade those draft picks. We see memes all over the place that they're not giving away their draft picks. They're not giving away Jaylen Brown. We don't want to make these trades. I think this is the year where they finally slide out of those playoffs, and they got to take a look at themselves in the mirror and think, hey, we gotta risk it or biscuit, man.
I mean, that's very fair. One of the biggest things I have to say, and I agree with you with the draft pick thing that's hurt the Celtics, is Danny Ainge did not draft well the last couple seasons.
No.
I mean, look at like Grant Williams, and I mean, Aaron Nesmith, he was a good pick, but you had like Grant Williams, you have I'm blanking on the guy from Indiana. and just a bunch of players that had like high promise, and then they just haven't turned out or haven't developed yet. Some of them are still young, but I'm not seeing a lot of the potential there. Like I don't think it definitely hurts them because their bench is so weak. It's probably one of the worst benches in the East, and that's why I dropped them as far as 6. Not as far as
Mhm.
you, obviously, but we definitely both see that the Celtics, there's just something not right there.
Yeah, I have them just out. I don't have them by far at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I just like Charlotte there to edge them out. The younger, hungrier team, maybe not as complacent. That's just me personally. I kind of like that there in the Eastern Conference. I know obviously things could shake out. We could be entirely wrong, but I think that's the way that we both kind of see it in that Eastern Conference. And I know when I was trying to write it down, the Eastern Conference was a little bit harder to kind of nail down those last 4 to 5 spots.
Mhm.
Obviously, over in the Western Conference is we're going to move to now, but I'll kind of start and go through them pretty quickly here. At the top, I got Utah over in the Western Conference. I think they repeat the first seed. I think they're one of the best regular season teams in basketball. Great coaching, a lot of depth. They keep Mike Conley. What I love too is a couple underrated moves. They add Hassan Whiteside. They add Rudy Gay. They're just going to continue to be a great team. Number 2, almost the same exact story. I like Denver at number 2. They keep Will Barton and JaMychal Green. They added Austin Rivers. They added Jeff Green. Another great regular season team. Nikola Jokic is going to do what he does, triple doubles from that center position. Number 3, I got a feeling you'll probably disagree, but I like the Los Angeles Lakers right there. I know they're the 7th seed last year, and they took a high swinging offseason. Obviously, everybody knows Russell Westbrook, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Wayne Ellington, Ken Bazemore, Rajon Rondo, Carmelo Anthony. The list goes on, all the guys that they added. But I think with the Lakers, they were able to add enough talent and then they're able to kind of come together. They kind of have that third star now, you could say, in Russell Westbrook. Obviously, he's not what he used to be. But if there's times in the game where he can serve as the non-primary ball handler and he can almost just serve as a slasher, which is what he's always been best at on the offensive side of the ball. And one thing with Russell Westbrook is he plays hard. No one can ever deny that he's going to give you everything that he possibly has. I like the Lakers rally around kind of being able to maneuver around their age is going to be a little bit of a struggle. Some more nights off, but I think overall they're a deep team. And I like some of the young guys they added. Kendrick Nunn coming from Miami, I think he's a very underrated pickup. I really liked him. Malik Monk coming from Charlotte. I know that hurt Charlotte a lot coming over the Lakers. They're going to play some key moments off the bench with those young legs. Number 4, I got Phoenix. They kept Chris Paul. They kept Cameron Payne, added Elfrid Payton and JaVale McGee. I really like them. They're dropping a little bit because I don't think they got too much better, but I still think that those guards and Chris Paul and Devin Booker going to be able to carry them deep. Number 5 might surprise you a little bit. I put Portland up there at number 5. I think they climb a little bit. They're able to re-sign Norman Powell, added Tony Snell, Ben McLemore, Larry Nance Jr. They did lose some pieces in Zach Collins, Inez Cantor, obviously Carmelo. But I think we'll get to it here in a little bit too. But I see a big season for Damian Lillard coming up this season. Number 6, I got the Clippers. The only real addition for the Clippers is Justice Winslow and Eric Bledsoe. So, some nice guys, some guys you'd love to have on the roster. I do think the losses of Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo are going to hurt. And obviously that injury to Kawhi that everybody's still kind of wondering when that's going to happen. But I think we've seen in the past when Paul George has to be the number 1 guy, and he in the regular season, not in the postseason, he can be a number 1 guy in the regular season, keep them afloat. And then when he does come back, hopefully, not too long into the season, they're able to make that push. And they're at the 6th seed. Number 7, I like Memphis. They added Steven Adams, Jarrett Culver, Chris Dunn, some young legs. As far as Steven Adams, he's been in the league for a while, but those other guys able to kind of trade out Jonas Valanciunas, send out Grayson Allen. But I like Memphis. I like another year of Ja Morant. I really like his leadership. They got a lot of young guys, Dylan Brooks over there in Memphis, that they play really hard. And closing out the playoffs in the Western Conference, I got Dallas. Added Reggie Bullock. They lost Josh Richardson. So just almost like Boston, another team where they didn't do a whole lot to get better. I really like Luka Doncic. I don't think Kristaps Porzingis is a number 2 option. I think he's more of a number 3. They have yet to kind of solve that. Obviously, Jason Kidd coming in as a coach is going to be a question mark going into the season. I just think Luka's too talented. He's going to be in the playoffs.
All right. Do you see like making the playing games out west?
Oh boy. You might have to get back to me on that one. I didn't write that out.
No,
I
you're
just
all
kind of
right.
went with my 8, and I kind of like just made a stop there because I didn't want to have to go too far into it.
This may kind of surprise you, but our top like 5 teams for the West are very similar.
Mhm.
Um, and the funny thing about the West is I'm not putting as much stock into my picks as I would the East because as we've seen with the West, a team can go from first 1 week to seventh the next. I mean, we saw the Lakers finish
Yeah,
in seventh because of injuries and stuff like that, but it did not take them long to drop that far. It was a quick drop.
very true.
So like you, I have the Jazz at the top for some of the same reasons you said. They're a great regular season team. But I know the reality is going to be come May that we're going to see they're not going to like, they could make the conference finals, but they're not a finals threat to me. Although I will have to say this season, I think the West is a little more wide open for who can get into the finals.
Hmm.
Um, at number 2, I have the Suns. I'm a little higher on them than you. But to me, Chris Paul got a taste of the finals and he's talked about it. He wants to get back there desperately. So he's going
Yeah,
to be really motivated this season because he knows his clock is ticking. Even though he's warded off father time pretty well, aside from some injury problems here and there, which if that comes back up this year, that could sink him a little bit in the standings. But I have the Suns at number 2. Number 3, I have the Nuggets. What can I say? I mean, Jokic.
he's
That's
amazing.
why he's incredible. I really hope Jamal Murray comes back healthy because that's definitely going to help him. I love the Jeff Green signing, but what I hated it more that the Nets gave him up, especially how impactful he was in the
Hmm.
playoffs with Harden kind of sidelined and Kyrie sidelined as well. So that was a great pickup for them. At number 4, I have the Lakers, which might surprise you that I had them that high because I think you're definitely thinking I was going to have them a little lower.
A little
Um,
bit. Yeah.
this is a team I think that's you're going to see them coasting a lot during the season. They're very old. It's a very old team. It's the oldest average age in NBA history. Um, but what helps is that they have Westbrook, who he's basically going to be on nights where LeBron or Anthony Davis might just take off because they're tired, just trying to rest, conserve their bodies so they could be there for the postseason. Westbrook's going to be the engine that's going to keep that team running. Um, as for the fit of LeBron and Westbrook together, I'm still not exactly sure how that's going to work out because we've seen Westbrook clash with stars in situations like in the playoffs when he was playing with Harden, or probably Harden should be taking those shots in the closing seconds or the closing minutes, and Westbrook's just chucking bricks. And it's gonna be interesting to see come playoff time what kind of Russell Westbrook we're getting. Are we going to see one that's going to be off the ball a little more and letting LeBron and Anthony Davis go to work, or are we going to kind of see the same thing that we've seen from Westbrook the past couple seasons? At number 5, I also have the Trailblazers. I'm a big Damian Lillard believer. I'm excited to see the team under Chauncey Billups because Terry Stotts was there for the better part of a decade. And
Yeah.
so it's going to be a different team. CJ McCollum, I hope, is healthy this year. It's definitely going to be a big factor of this team making the fifth. Um, and that's one of the teams I'm always rooting for because I love Lillard's mentality, wanting to stay in the same place, wanting to win for the city of Portland. And I think that city deserves some NBA success. At number 6, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is one of my picks I am not too confident in. But I had to put him here because Luka Doncic, he's primed for that breakout season where like he's already broken out. Everyone knows he's a top 10 player in the game. But
Oh
this
yeah,
is
no
gonna
doubt.
firmly establish him. I believe he's gonna establish himself as like a top 5 player in this league. Um, it's unfortunate that the Mavericks, and for why reasons I cannot understand, that they didn't get better. They didn't draw any free agents at all, like any big names, nothing. And it makes no sense. I mean, like there's like no what salary tax in Texas. Like, why
Yeah.
is Dallas not a free agent destination? I don't
Come
understand
play
it.
with Luca. I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to be in the playoffs. You got a chance to play with what a lot of people say the next LeBron. He's an amazing talent. Yeah.
yeah.
Draw someone. Get somebody.
I'm just it blows my mind. I will never understand it. I've been to Dallas. It's a nice city. So NBA stars, why are you passing up on this place? Especially with Luca. I mean, you messed up
Why
with
not?
Dirk. Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? All right. So At number 7, I have the Warriors, a team I
Okay.
noticed you didn't have in there, which I can
I did
understand
not.
why. But for me, I look at it this way: Steph Curry, he's been losing the last couple seasons, and I think he's kind of tired of it. I definitely think he's gonna be really motivated to make some noise in the playoffs. I mean, what they got the 8th seed last year, and then they got bounced out of the playing game by the Grizzlies. I don't think he wants that again. I think he wants to
Mhm.
set his team up to put him in a place to where they won't have to deal with that again. Now, me having them at 7th, they're still going to be in the playing game. But you have Clay Thompson coming back. And even though we might not see Clay Thompson as the defensive force that he was once he does come back in December or January, he's a shooter. That's not going to go away. I mean,
No.
probably the only thing the guy was able to do while he was healing was just shooting. So his mechanics are going to be there. His timing is going to be there. I'm not too concerned about Clay Thompson offensively when he comes back because the Warriors need offense and Clay's got plenty to provide. I do like some of the jump, some of their younger guys, like Jordan Poole looks really good. I know it's still preseason, but he looked really good in the preseason. So I think he might take his he might be able to step up as a bigger role player. Definitely like it's gonna be interesting to see how he plays while Clay is still out. Because I definitely believe he'll be in the starting lineup. Um, at number 8, I have the Clippers. So I'm lower on them than you are. Just for the fact that not having Kawhi Leonard there is going to hurt. Now, Paul George looks like one of the best players in the league in the right opportunity. I mean, we saw him that first year with the Thunder. He was like, what, a top 2, top 3 MVP candidate.
Yeah.
Um, he's definitely going to keep that team afloat. But the West is tough. And the Clippers, again, are one of the older rosters. I mean, we see Ibaka dealing with injuries and stuff like that. Marcus Morris is 31, 32. I believe isn't Paul George going to be 30 this year themselves? Like it's an old
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. They're
a
getting
lot of
up
that
there.
team's dealt with injuries. So I'm not as high on them as I've been in years past. At number 9, I have the Grizzlies. It was kind of hard to leave them out of the playoffs, but again, this is the West. It's a deep conference.
No doubt.
So I do have the Grizzlies on the outside, but I do expect John Morant to definitely push this team, and it really helps that they have JJJ back and healthy. Um, so it's gonna be interesting to see if he has a breakout season because he's kind of primed for it. He really didn't have that second year where you see a lot of these young stars kind of break out just because they've
Mhm.
had a full season under their belt. So I'm hoping for the Grizzlies that they do a little higher than where I have them. And then for that final little playing spot at number 10, I have the Timberwolves. Um, which when we get into it later, I I can see this either exceeding my expectations or going completely backwards in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I think there's been so many like the Minnesota Timberwolves just seem to be one of those teams that you want to like, but something always goes wrong. Whether it
Mhm.
be the head coach, whether it be the second star. I think everybody across the league really likes Karl Anthony Towns. They thinks he's a great talent, but the winning hasn't been there. It's almost kind of been what DeMarcus Cousins was at the beginning of his career, where over in Sacramento, the talent was there. You get these notifications that he drops 50 points and 20 rebounds, and they lost by 3. It's just kind of been it's almost been the same thing with Minnesota. I'd like to see them try to take that jump. I would love to see it. I think a lot of people around the league would. It's just it'd be hard for me to just kind of put any sort of money or any sort of eggs in the basket of Minnesota. And I think you probably feel the same way, but just kind of hoping for that push there by Minnesota.
All right. You ready to
Yeah.
break into some of our award predictions for the season?
Yeah. Yeah. I think now that we've kind of ran through the teams there, kind of go more little more individuals. So I wrote down my pick and then I made a couple dark horses, but I want you to kick it off. Who do you see taking home that MVP trophy at the end of this season?
So, kind of how you joked about it when we started out. I have Luka Doncic as my MVP. Uh, I've kind of factored in the storylines because we're starting to see with these MVP selections that a lot of these people that are voting, they're voting for the storylines, which is why you're not seeing as many repeat winners within the last decade. And I think the storyline of Luka Doncic being the MVP makes a lot of sense to me. He's going to have a great season. I definitely think he's going to improve from where he was last year. I mean, he was an MVP candidate last year, I believe.
Mhm.
And he's going to have to do a lot to put that Mavericks team in a good seeding position. And I think that's going to sway the voters to vote for him. I think they really wanted to vote for him last year. Um, and just like his third year in the league, or I'm sorry, his fourth year in the league, right? He's been in the league
I
4
believe
years
so. Yeah.
now. Yeah. I'm
Sounds right.
like
Sounds
all
right.
the seasons are starting to blend together. I blame that COVID season where we had
With the
like
bubble. Yeah.
where we had like 3 seasons within a year. Um, but yeah, I think Luca is definitely going to be the MVP. If not him, I definitely also see Lillard because again, with the storylines, Lillard's was possibly going to be traded. There's a new coach. Um, he's sticking with the city that drafted him and all this. And I think he's just been going on such a tear, like keeping that franchise afloat somehow with CJ McCollum being sidelined by injuries now and again. I think again he's another player where we could definitely see him being in that MVP consideration because the other players he's compared to, like Steph Curry, well, they're all guys that have won the award. So I think his name is always just thrown up in the conversation of like, what's the next step for this guy? And I definitely think he can get to the MVP level this season.
No, definitely. Going off of exactly right what you said, I got to go right into my MVP pick, where I did pick Damian Lillard. I think he is prime for one of those seasons, and I just wrote down simply, it's his time. It's Damian Lillard's time. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen very soon. I like him going into this season with a new coach. We've seen what he's like under Terry Stotts. Now we get to see what he's like with a new coach, a new offense, the commitment to the city. As much as a lot of people around the league are like, why, man? Just go somewhere else. Go win a chip. Like, just go get it done. You know, everybody leaves. It's okay. He's like, nope, I don't want to leave, at least not yet. I love the commitment. And like you said, it's a narrative driven award. I know a lot of people in the media, a lot of people around the league don't like to say that it's all about the performance. It's all about who's the most valuable. It's not true. It's a narrative driven award, and that's okay. It's the story of the season. You know, no one wants to see, just for an example, LeBron win it 8 out of 10 years just because he was without a doubt the most valuable to his team. No one wants to see that. I understand spreading the wealth. And for Damian Lillard, it's his time. And a couple dark horses that I wrote down, maybe a little bit off the cuff. One of them I like is Devin Booker. I like if Phoenix is going to have a strong season, get back and that playoff push. I think as well as Chris Paul can still play at his age, I think Devin Booker's got to take another step up, carry it a little bit more. We talk about with LeBron, Anthony Davis kind of helping him as he gets a little bit older. I think the same thing for Devin Booker and Chris Paul, kind of taking over that position, performing more. And we've seen Devin Booker put up monster numbers. And I think Devin Booker could kind of sneak in there towards the end. Maybe if someone slips, someone stumbles, he can sneak in and steal it. And the other guy is a team I'm very high on, Trae Young. Trae Young is someone to keep an eye on. One, he puts up buckets, no doubt about that. I think if Atlanta performs at the way that they perform, and that I think they're going to, they get up to that 4 or 5 seed. Trae Young is going to be the driving force, and he's going to have his name in the MVP conversation.
All right. It's kind of funny, actually. I could see Trae Young win the MVP more than I could see Booker winning it, which is funny because I'm not high on the Hawks at all. I'm just more high on Trae Young, but yeah, still, I'm not really big on that team. Although I love Nate McMillan. I think he's a great coach, and Indiana messed up for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So my rookie of the year pick, it was pretty simple. I have Jalen Green, with Cade Cunningham being, if it's not Green, it's probably going to be Cade Cunningham, purely for the reason that they're both on garbage franchises right now. That there's really no one that's like a firm, like, okay, I'm the top guy. So I think these rookies are both in a great place where they can step up and step into that role of like, all right, I'm the guy, this is my team. And I think we can see that from Jalen Green. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, going right off of you said, it's funny. Both of your kind of backups have been my number one picks. I'm going with Cade Cunningham. I think him coming into the season, I really like the talent. I like that he plays the guard position, which it's a guard league, is the way that we live in right now. He's going to have tons of usage in Detroit. Like you said, no number one guy. He's going to be on the floor a lot. He's going to be able to learn. He's going to be able to grow. He's a very talented prospect. He'll have all the time in the world. Detroit is not kidding. They don't think they're competing for anything. He's going to be out there. He's going to be playing 30, 35 minutes a night as a rookie. He's going to get the numbers. He's going to get the time. He's going to get the headlines to get that Rookie of the Year. Moving right on into Defensive Player of the Year. And this one really hits home with me. I know I'm a Miami Heat fan, and I'm going with Bam Adebayo. And the reason I'm going with Bam Adebayo is because I think the Rudy Gobert stranglehold that he's had on this award for, it seems like 5 years now, is finally coming to an end. I think when you start to go by and you look at the numbers, you look at the defensive production, you look at the type of competitor, the type of athletes that they're guarding. Bam Adebayo can guard 1 through 5. Rudy Gobert, don't get me wrong, is a fantastic defensive center in this league, but he's a center. Bam Adebayo will pick up guards coming down the court. I think a lot of people will agree with that. And I think this year, the Defensive Player of the Year award will go to its rightful recipient, who resides down in South Beach.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Defensive Player of the Year award. And I think mostly because of Rudy Gobert, we're starting to see it become more of kind of like the MVP award, where it's very narrative driven. And even though it's a stupid reason, just from listening to podcasts or watching TV and just hearing all these sports talking heads talk, including some of the people that do make these decisions, but when they vote, like they're not going to vote for Rudy Gobert again. It doesn't matter how great of a season he has, because of what happened in the playoffs, which is so dumb because it's a regular season award. But that's just how it's going to be. So I don't think anyone's going to have to worry about Rudy Gobert winning it again. For me, I picked Giannis Antetokounmpo, just because, like I said earlier, he's going to be hungry for more, and I think you're really going to see that on both sides of the ball. And he's going up against some of the best players in the East several times a week, because the East is getting better at his position. You have Kevin Durant. You have tons of talent. There'll be times where you'll probably see him on Embiid. I mean, it's the kind of players he's guarding. He's guarding better and better players on a regular night, which I think that's going to definitely help his case for picking up another Defensive Player of the Year award. Especially because I think that's, like I said, with the narratives, I think there's voter fatigue for voting him for MVP because he won it twice in a row. So I definitely think this is going to be like, we can't give you MVP, but here's your Defensive Player of the Year award trophy. There you go.
There you go. Oh,
right.
Wow.
So,
And then,
6-man.
Oh, 6-man? All right, let's do 6-man.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, you're good. Let's go for it. 6-man of the year is almost kind of like a theme for me. Is I don't know if I'm buying into the preseason hype, which I know we're not supposed to do because it's preseason. I'm going to go with Tyler Hero because third year in the league, we kind of saw he exploded onto the scene in year one. Everybody was like, who's this kid from Kentucky? He's a walking bucket. No one can stop him. He's taking game-winning shots. He's backing up for 3 as a rookie. No one does that. Year 2, he was productive, but we didn't see those flash plays. I think here in year 3, he's got the confidence underneath him. We have a talented Miami team where, because of the lineup they're able to put together, he'll probably be coming off the bench. And when he comes off that bench, he'll probably be that leading scorer, that 6-man of the year. I like him kind of filling that, what we saw with Lou Williams, 5-6 years ago, those type of guys that became Jamal Crawford, that became these perennial 6-man of the year. I don't know if he's going to have a career off the bench. I think at some point he'll be the starting shooting guard for Miami. I just think with the lineup that they were able to put together, with the free agents they were able to sign, he'll be coming off the bench. So I like the Defensive Player of the Year and the 6-man of the year coming out of Miami. And that's probably a little biased, I understand, but I'm really buying into the Tyler Hero hype this season.
It's kind of funny because you may say your pick's a little biased. My pick for this also has some bias, but I can back it up and make it sound rational. Okay. My 6-man of the year pick is Derrick Rose. And I feel like he's been right there for the award the last 3 seasons. The reason why I'm picking Rose is because this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th consecutive year he's come back from his injuries. I believe it's his 3rd year where no major injury, both legs have been healthy and under him. And we're just gonna see, I think, another improvement for Derrick Rose. He's just gonna be better this season, which sounds crazy being a hobbled guard at 33. But this Knicks organization has stood behind him. They're so supportive of him. He's playing with his coach in Tom Thibodeau that he's been playing with in several different locations. And along with that, he at times was the best player for that organization last year last season. I mean, I thought it was clear in the playoffs when he was the best player on the court, not named Trae Young, because that's what he had to be for the New York Knicks to even attempt to stay in that series, which he single-handedly, I believe, won. Was it game 2 or 3 for them, which I believe was the only one they had in that series.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Derrick Rose because, and like I said, sometimes with like just the media, I think it'd be another good way to cap off, or not cap off his career, but like say like, hey, Derrick Rose wasn't just the MVP and 3 All-Stars and then nothing. Like, no, this man still plays a vital role in the league, and I can definitely see him. I expect him to be a candidate, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I would not be mad at that. Derrick Rose, anytime any player's been through what he's been through, and as much as I love to rag on the Bulls, and that's something that I love to do, and we'll get to later on later versions of the podcast. All the respect in the world to Derrick Rose, and I would not be at the least bit upset with that. I think, like you said, he's been in contention the last couple of years. You can make an argument that he should have had one by now, and I would not be upset if he had one at the end of this season. But kind of the last year-long pick that we have here is the coach of the year. I went with Nate McMillan from Atlanta. I know we kind of discussed this earlier. Obviously, I'm higher on Atlanta. I kind of bought into the reports that we were seeing about when they made the coaching change and Nate McMillan coming in, taking the reins of that team, and these players loved him. I think Trae Young is going to continue to develop and get a lot better. I love bringing back John Collins. I did not want to see him walk out of there. I like him there in Atlanta and that fit, especially with that offense. I think Nate McMillan, this young team, they're going to be able to, like I said earlier, beat up on the bottom of that Eastern Conference, get a lot of wins, get higher up in the standings. Because I think as the coach of the year, you like to be a 6 and above at least to kind of be a candidate as far as seeding goes. But I like Nate McMillan grabbing that coach of the year award.
I like that pick. I definitely could see that being him being a candidate. I mean, he changed that team overnight when he took over the head coaching role. I mean, and well, you saw what he did with them in the playoffs. Definitely that team overachieved, and I think a primary reason was him and Trae Young. Like I've always said, and I've said this to many people when I talk basketball, Indiana Pacers, what were you thinking? Why'd you fire the man? My coach of the year pick, a little biased, but like I said with Derrick Rose, there's some rationale behind it. I have Chicago's Billy Donovan taking home the award. And
I thought you were going to say Thibodeau. I thought you were coming through with Thibodeau.
Oh, back to back? No way. But for me, it's Billy Donovan because this Chicago team is, a lot of people in the media are not high on it. They definitely are much closer to what this team's floor could be. I've saw somebody say like the team was going to be 11th this year, which is absurd to me. Can't even understand the rationale on that. Like, no, 11th in the East, really? Come on. This Bulls team, because of that reason, and from what I've seen, I know it's preseason, we can't put too much stock in it, but the defense is going to be so much better. The offense is going to be so much better because Zach LaVine won't be the only person that can score a bucket. And you're just going to see this team come together really well, and that's going to be because of Billy Donovan. And that's why he's going to get the award, because this Bulls team is going to shock everyone that's so down on them, because they're going to, like, for me, I think both of us have them as the 5th seed in the East, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And like you said, like you want to be within that top 6. And I'm looking at like all the other coaches that are like on these top teams in the East and West. And other than Monty Williams, who is my second pick for coach of the year, Billy Donovan's like the only guy that hasn't won that award. So I think we're definitely going to see it go to a coach that hasn't won it.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think here is, I like that pick here. As we're about to get into the all NBA teams, I think we'll try to go through these pretty quickly, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here as we're kind of going a little bit long, but it's awesome because we get to kind of lay our predictions out there, and everybody can say how stupid they are or how perfect they are. And I'm sure they'll be absolutely perfect. At least mine will as we go through the season, but let's kind of go right here into the all NBA first team. the all NBA teams, there's not a lot of change once guys kind of reach that level where they're, first team, second team. Obviously, there's jumps from the first to the second, but there's a lot of the guys stay the same. My first team, I went with Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. I went with LeBron, KD, and Joel Embiid is who I have on that first team.
All right. Yeah, I like that. You're probably going to be a little salty about my first team because there's going to be a name on mine missing from yours. But I had Curry, Doncic, Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. That's my first team.
Okay.
I think I can see on your face, you know what name's
Yep.
missing.
Yeah, I think we both disagree on the type of season LeBron's going to have, but I'm sure
I think he's gonna
LeBron
have
will
a
do
very
what
nice
he's.
season.
I got you. Okay, we'll go into the second team here. Is I have Trae Young. Obviously, I said he's kind of a dark horse MVP candidate for me. Trae Young, Luka Doncic are the second team. I like Jimmy Butler, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then Nikola Jokic on that second team.
For my second team, I have James Harden, Damian Lillard, Paul George, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Jokic.
I like that. You got Jason Tatum on the second team.
I think he's going to have a good season because he needs to.
I was about to say, I think because he needs to, but definitely, Jared, I appreciate you guys joining us and everybody here who was listening along and everybody who just had us on in the background. We appreciate you nonetheless, but it's glad we were able to sit down, kind of put pen to paper and get out this first edition of the TM Up podcast. And make sure you guys follow us on all social media platforms. We'll be posting content. Obviously, we haven't really decided how often we'll be rolling out the podcast or anything like that. Everything's kind of a work in progress, but we appreciate you guys following along. And anything to say to the audience there, Jarrett?
Yeah, just make sure to check out our social media, share us with your friends and family, and we appreciate you listening. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one, and make sure you guys tee 'em up.